Hi, this is Chef Rick Moonen, interviewing from my studio in Las Vegas. The name of my podcast is Ocean Raised. Here's where I get to dive deep into storytelling with the original gangsters of cuisine to find out where they started and what drives them now. Today, I embrace with utter respect a longtime friend, colleague, and a living legend in the global hospitality industry. As one of the most highly regarded chefs in America today, Charlie Palmer received critical acclaim for his signature progressive American cooking, a style built on rambunctious flavors and unexpected combinations with a deep, lasting infusion of classical French cuisine. Influenced by his upstate New York childhood experience working in his family's farm vegetable garden, Charlie was an early advocate of farm over factory food. So he was classically trained at the CIA, Culinary Institute of America. Charlie Palmer started his executive chef career at the River Cafe, Brooklyn's legendary incubator for the American food movement, where he earned a prestigious 3 stars from the New York Times and trained a legion of other young cooks who have gone on to become some of America's leading chefs. In 1988, Palmer made a landmark commitment to create dishes featuring regional American ingredients at the sublime Oreo. At the time, situated in the 19th century townhouse off Madison Avenue in Manhattan, 88. Oreo moved 20 years later to the theater district located in the heart of Times Square at the Bank of America Tower at 1 Bryant Park, one of the most environmentally advanced skyscrapers, where it flourished for 12 years before shifting to a virtual model, Oreo at Home, in June of 2020. During its 30 years as a brick and mortar restaurant, Oreo has earned 13 Michelin Stars and 2 James Beard Awards. Other coast-to-coast locations encompass an expanding collection of award-winning restaurants and luxurious boutique hotels, many in equally significant historical locations, and each designed with distinctive personalities to provide unique experiences. These properties include Charlie Palmer at the Nick, AVA Social at Archer Hotel, New York, Willow by Charlie Palmer in Rhinebeck, New York, Charlie Palmer Steak, Washington, D.C., Charlie Palmer Steak in Reno, Nevada, Charlie Palmer Steak in Napa, California, and Dry Creek Kitchen at Hotel Healdsburg, which Charlie owns, Sonoma County in California, an unbelievable place to go. James Beard Foundation, Best Chef in America, 1997, and Who's Who of Food and Beverage in America, 1998. He serves as a board member for Culinary Institute of America, presented with an honorary doctorate in April of 2018. Authored many cookbooks, as you can see behind me. I have just a few of them. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books he's written. We'll go through that one by one later. One of the most highly regarded chefs and boutique hoteliers in America today, Charlie Palmer has received critical acclaim for his signature progressive American cuisine, a style which reinterprets classic European cooking using American artisanal products and small farmer producers. Charlie says, "I call it progressive American because every time I step into the kitchen, I feel things moving." Charlie, thank you so much for coming in here. I could go on for a long time. You did the amount of charities you've done, the amount of people you've mentored, the amount of businesses and employees people that you've employed. Your network is a spider web across the globe. And I am honored, and I mean this with all my heart, to be able to call you my friend from way, way back. Welcome.
Well, we've had some good times together, you know?
Yeah.
Both in the kitchen and outside too. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, we go back into our formative years, you know. So yes, that's the time where, I mean, you and I went to
our formative years.
You and I went to the Culinary Institute around the same time. But
yeah,
I think you were ahead of me, and we both really met up at La Côte Basque in the beginning. Or did we know each other when we were at the CIA? I don't remember.
I think just briefly, but remember, well, you know, for those that don't know, you know, the Culinary Institute at that time, you know, the AOS program was, there was a new class starting and graduating every 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
So, you know, I think we were like 3 weeks apart or, you know, something like that. So,
right.
You know, and it's, you know, it's a small campus. It's, you know, as most people know, but even today, you know, the Hyde Park campus is, you know, in full participation, 2,400 students, you know, full-time students on campus at one time. Yeah. So
I was talking with Chef Waldy Malouf recently, and he told me about they're building it back, and it looks great. I'm proud to be a part of the CIA. I'm a fellow and continue to be a fellow because, you know, I'm busy. I don't know how you find the time to do all that you do. But what I like to do here is to ask you to go back to the beginning, your journey, becoming a chef, growing up. I read about you're on a farm, but I never asked you this. In the many years I've known you, like, what did you grow on that farm? What animals did you have on it? And tell me what life was like.
When I was a kid, I worked, my dad was kind of a, I guess you would call it jack of all trades, he was an electrician, a plumber, had a small appliance store in the small town I grew up in, Smyrna, New York. But neighboring to that, he also had, interest in farming. And when I was a kid, I lived a good portion of my time. I lived actually on a dairy farm, which is our neighbors technically, but we were like family, everybody together.
Sure.
And my early teens, I was milking cows and every morning, and raising everything, hay, corn, whatever we were feeding our cows at that time. But then at the same time, we always had big vegetable gardens and growing everything, a lot of food orchards in upstate New York, apples, pears, things like that. So, that, as a kid, not really knowing more anything else besides that, this was just natural. Everybody grew vegetables, right? Everybody,
right.
raised great animals of some kind too. Even if they weren't full-fledged farmers, they had a few, raising a few, Holsteins or a few sheep. We had some sheep up there, not a lot, some beef cattle too. So, that was, it was my later years when I realized that, all of that, exposure to farming and growing, was kind of a really big advantage for me, I thought, because, a lot of our colleagues, Rick, when we, even in the Culinary Institute, right, and, kids that were really kids at that point, starting a career, they had never seen like vegetables growing out of the ground, No. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like, to me, that was, that was crazy, but, if you think about it, growing up in the city or something.
You came into the Culinary Institute of America at a time where it was still just a vocation, really. That's what I call it. There was no celebrity chefs. This is the 70s, and you walked into that school with an experience, the things that you smelled, what you touched, what you saw, what you tasted at different stages as it's growing. I'm sure I know this is true of me as a little kid. And when I saw something coming out, I picked it when it was underripe and while it was ripening and right later on. And those are the taste memories that later on in your life, you start to recall when you're tasting a wine, when something goes in your mouth, the food. So you walked in with a tremendous advantage. And so we'll zip through school real quick because, we know that experience was insane. It was so much information coming at us. I know that when I went to the CIA, we went to the CIA at the same time, that we had pretty much the same instructors, and they were awesome. They were real European chefs, that worked in the industry, and they carried with them a true understanding of what you were up against when you got out of that school, and you really got an amazing education. And I was so fortunate to be there at that time as well as you, I think, because we really got our butts kicked, so to speak. And it's not like, we didn't cower down from it. We swam with the sharks eventually in New York City.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think, that also, and I'm involved now, obviously, with the school and sometimes with quite a few of the faculty, especially the chefs, things like that. The one thing that I think we don't really recall or think about so much too is like all that. Like, we were introduced, to the world of cooking, professional cooking, by people that had years and years of experience and under their belts, and they were tough and they were hard and all that stuff too. But I think the most important thing that I got out of that, and from all of those chefs, or at least most of them, was the world of possibilities that was out there for us. And I think that today, with the school, I'm always reinforcing the fact that, those instructors, those chefs, those teachers now are the ones that can inspire. They can inspire people. They can inspire the young students, and most of them are still young. We get, different ages, but, inspire them to say, hey, the world is, there's all these possibilities out there, in our business, because it's not just being a chef in a restaurant, right? It's not just, one thing. There's just, multitude of things in the food world that now we see, more than ever, is out there. So
yeah, and it's a good evolution, and it's
yeah.
important. Like you just said, we kind of got beat up by the old guys, and then we had to figure it out. Today, they're capable of tapping into the same experience level, but having a more rounded, education, and it's very cool.
Yeah, but even things that people don't think about, like a couple of students are now involved or are really founded and started Impossible Foods. The Impossible Burger, everybody talks about these days,
right,
kind of thing. But that's just the tip of it, right? It's Impossible Foods, like gluten-free pastas and things like that they're developing, and it all came from a CIA background.
Yeah,
and I just think not only am I amazed by that, but I'm proud of the fact that the school has generated this kind of like knowledge and
Charlie, let's face the facts. You were instrumental in pushing things in the right direction. I swear, you were the chairman of the board. You got you were the Trojan chef. You were there. You got the big boy seat up there, and you're like, all right, here's the way we're gonna do it. I would have paid to be on that chair meeting. And okay, so let's go into your post CIA years. When you got out, did you go right to La Côte Basque when you left the company?
Yeah, I was a fellow in the Escoffier room.
Yes.
Did a fellowship, which that now is something. It's called something different. It's a TA or teacher's assistant or.
What was the chef? Who'd you work under?
Leon Dannins.
Yes, you did.
Leon, talk about an education in itself. Like working under someone with that kind of knowledge and that kind of zest for life. Like the ultimate prankster. That made you laugh, made you cry, made you want to be like him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
he taught you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then you went to La Côte Basque. You started the same time I did. We both went to La Côte Basque together, like little wet behind the ear kids.
Well, actually, La Lavandou. Remember La Lavandou? My first interview, and when I first went to New York, I was at La Lavandou. The tiny little restaurant there on First Street. Which ironically, years later, I opened my first restaurant up the block from the very first place that I came to New York. To start. But La Lavandou, and then of course, we had the great good fortune of being part of that team that reopened La Côte Basque, and I think brought it to, where Rashu, really wanted it to be, where that kind of that iconic, New York City expression of classical French cooking. I think that's why I describe it to people that we were part of that. And when you think back, we were a big part of that.
Huge. Because when Rashu first opened up his restaurant, it was all French, and then he started to bring in American chefs, and then he started to see that American chefs are pretty darn good, man. These guys are real ambitious, and it was you, me, Frankie Crispo, a couple other guys from La Lavandou, and we had a pastry chef, we had a butchering area, and the whole thing. I could see the entire kitchen. I could smell the walk-in refrigerator, I swear. And I started as the entremetier in the middle, and then there was you on one side of me, and Waldy Malouf on the other side. So Waldy was the saucier, and you were the poissonnier. So you were in charge of fish, and Waldy was in charge of meat, and I was in charge of vegetables. And the thing that was, revolutionary at the time was the Villeroy and Bach plates, the huge oversized plates with the basket weave rims and stuff. I remember seeing them getting unpacked, and we would just coat the plate in a beurre blanc, a butter sauce. After the vegetables went on, you put a nice, blob of that, and you started painting pictures with different colored, we made a beurre rouge, a red butter. We made little flowers and stuff, and then I had to pass them off to you and to Waldy to put your entrees on or whatever it was, Oh my God, those years were
good old days.
Those were the good old days, and we were inseparable as a group. I remember, you and I would get together.
How hot that kitchen was. Remember some of those days this was the kitchen that truly had no air conditioning, right? And we nicknamed it the Inferno because and especially some of those hot summer nights when we have some of the new guys and new gals coming into the kitchen. that, we would place bets on like how long it would be before they fainted behind the line.
We had characters.
Brutal. It was
Wait, when we were opening days, we're working, and the plastic coating on the outside of the fluorescent lights melted and fell to the floor. My boots, I thought, I come out of school and everybody's telling you heavy pots, you got to buy, make sure you got steel tip boots. It's something that's sturdy on your feet because it's so important. Your feet, you're going to be on your feet your whole life. So I get these big army boots that are got a metal plate in the toe, and they're filled with my sweat. I swear it was so hot. Oh my God.
Yeah, you learn a lot quickly. Right? Remember when somebody would literally, pass out on the line. We would just take them into the walk-in cooler, leave them there, let them cool off a little bit.
They'll put their head in the garbage can that's got a slurry of ice with beer cans on the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, things were a little bit different then, but boy, were we ambitious. We lived it. I came in early. I opened up the restaurant eventually. I eventually took over for Waldy, so I was the saucier and you were the poissonnier. So I'm doing all the stocks and the soups and the basic sauces. You had sauces to do on poissonnier. You did more beurre blancs and a lot of that stuff. And we would taste back and forth. And it was an amazing relationship that I had with you because you were my sounding board. Because after a while, Jean-Jacques Rachu, who used to post the specials of the day that we had to prepare for lunch service, which was extremely busy, we'd walk in and look up on the board and it would say, blah, 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 supreme de volaille, à la Jean-Jacques Rachu.
Yeah.
And we eventually he would just write fish à la Palmer's, veal à la Moonen. He wouldn't even care anymore. You just do it. You make it up. You do it.
Right.
And that's when we got creative together, and we're really actually tourneing vegetables, fluting mushrooms,
thousands of fish, right? Thousands of tourneys.
Well, that's how you learn, and that's the beauty of it, So, all right. So let's just move out of La Côte Basse for a minute. We can talk. I could stay there and just, because there's a million memories of things that we used to do there. But so you got an opportunity in Westchester to go up and run a country club, I think, after that. Is that correct?
Yeah. The reason I did that was because I had met through some people, a bunch of executives, from not Hamilton Standard, but one of those companies. Some Fortune 500 company, and they all lived kind of in this little enclave country club, area called Wakabuk, and they lured me to come to their. Basically, what they called their club was small country club, beautiful golf course, very, very, very high end. And they had a clubhouse and, a club that they wanted to have their own restaurant. They really wanted their own place to go kind of thing.
Right.
And so they said to me, look, if you come and you'll be the chef at this country club, you can do whatever you want. There's no you don't have to cook club food or anything like it. Just do whatever you want. We want it to be, like a real restaurant kind of thing. So that was really attractive to me. And then, even to the point where they said, look, that when I first went there, they took me to a bank and got me a mortgage. And I bought a house on the golf course. I was like 23 years old.
Yeah, they backed you. Yeah.
not even 23 years old.
Not a good idea.
Yeah. And it was fun. It was fun. But, it was also, and I did it. We created some great menus. I had a small team of people, and people would try to get a reservation. This dining room only seated 60 people, so people would try to get a reservation and get turned down. You had to be a club member and everything. So,
but you learned something from Jean-Jacques Rachu at La Côte Basque at that place, because what he would do is he would take Culinary Institute of America students. There's no way they can live in New York City. They can't afford it. So he bought a house in Queens that became like a boarding house for his guys, and that created such loyalty. You did something similar at Wakabuk, as I recall. You had a butcher guy that was just your main man, and you took him under your wing, and you mentored so many people. As I think back, I remember going to dinner there, and you tried to kill me by feeding me too much food. And I'm like, I'm not sending this plate back, anything but empty, because it was delicious. I remember, beautiful potatoes with truffles, and you were sending me out everything in the world. It was just became a battle between you and I. You'd come to Oceana, I'd do the same thing to you. That was just the way we worked.
Well, it was a fun story though at the club though, because I'd never played golf in my life, and so they're like, hey, why don't you play against a beautiful golf course? And So I'd go out on the golf course on my day off and whatever, and start hitting golf balls. But I was terrible. And and what do they call it? You know, when you hit too low and you make a divot.
A divot, yeah.
Right. So these weren't divots; these were big gashes. And I never forget the groundskeeper saying to me, the head groundskeeper is like, "Look, you know, you can't be doing this. You're like you're ruining the greens and stuff like this." I said, "Look, I'll make you a deal." I said, "I will never play golf on your golf course again if you build me an herb garden the way I want it built." He said,
Brilliant.
Tough deal. So I had gardens and herb gardens built. You know, he did the whole thing. The grounds crew did it for me because, you know, that way they could keep me off the golf course.
Yeah. So around that time, I worked at, I was working at the, wait a second, how did that time out? Why did Buzzy O'Keefe give me a call? I remember sitting in my co-op in wherever it was. You'd been there. We used to go there and eat oysters, that little co-op I had, you know. Anyway, I get a phone call and it's Buzzy O'Keefe. You know, Michael Desmond O'Keefe. He's on the phone with me, and Buzzy's very thorough, and he won't let you get off until he's satisfied with your answer. And so I remember lying on my back on the phone with him because it was such a long. It was 45 minutes, and he's talking about. So, what do you think of Charlie Palmer? Do you think he's good? You know, he's doing all this questioning. You know, and then eventually, and I'm not saying I got you the job. Don't trust me. I didn't have the credibility back then to get anybody a job. He was just trying to drill down into me, and it was just. You became the chef at the River Cafe, and you changed that as well, Charlie. You really did. You know, the amount of people that went through you there. Forget about subsequently, you know, your own restaurants. This is when you're the executive chef, River Cafe, internationally recognized under the Brooklyn Bridge, most romantic restaurant in the area. And you're shooting rats out the window as you know. I'm kidding. Go ahead. Let's tell me about the River Cafe days a little bit, if you could. I mean, you got David Burke come out of there, and Neil Murphy, and I'm just thinking the original gangsters back in the day. Why don't you give me a little bit of give me a story, Charlie?
Jerry Hayden's of the world, yeah. But, you know, the River Cafe was, you know, first of all, you know, especially for a young chef, you know, at the time, I just turned 23. And that's where Buzzy was, you know, Buzzy O'Keefe was, you know, hesitant. He didn't, first of all, he didn't know how old I was, I think. He had an idea, he didn't really know. And anyways, so, you know, it was probably the longest interview process that, you know, anyone's ever been through.
Yeah.
You know, he would be like, you know, meet me for dinner, you know, and, you know, in the city, and, you know, we'd have dinner together or whatever. And Buzzy, as everyone knows, you know, is always late for everything. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you wait for me kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's something you love about the guy. Once you get to know him, and once you get to, you know, and he's endearing in that way. But it finally came to the point where, you know, he'd meet me at this restaurant, Cool de Giraffe. He said, meet me at Cool de Giraffe. We're gonna have dinner. I want to talk, you know, interview you. I want to talk to you, get to know you, kind of thing, which is great, you know.
Nice.
And Patty, his girlfriend at the time, would show up, and, you know, I swear to God, sometimes he would never show up. So it would be Patty and I having dinner, and then, which was great, you know, it's fun. But finally got to the point where I said, look, Buzzy, you know, all the respect in the world for you. I would love, you know, to be the chef at the River Cafe. You know, it's one of the greatest stages, you know, for a young, especially American chef, I think, you know, there ever will be. I said, but you got to make a decision. So I'm not going out to dinner with you anymore. I'm not interviewing anymore. You decide. You want me to be the chef? Great. If you don't want me, I move on. You know, I do something else.
I never knew that story, man. That's
awesome. It was crazy.
And so now
you know, so he's like, on the same phone call, he was like, oh, okay, you know, you can be the chef.
Oh, okay. You start tomorrow.
Didn't tell anybody at the River Cafe. Didn't tell anything. I just showed up. People are like, who are you? I'm like, I'm your new boss. You know, like,
oh my God. Whose place did you take? Who was the chef prior to you?
Oh, Larry Forgione.
Yeah,
Larry had been gone for probably 3-4 months,
right.
5 months probably by that time. And so you know, Richie Durazzi, and there was a couple of sous chefs that were, you know, running the show, and really nice. Richie Durazzi, great guy. So we hit it off right away. And I said, look, you know, I'd love to, you know, he ended up going out to Long Island where he was from to do a restaurant, but, you know, he was part of that team when we got started.
yeah, but we just built a great team of people and passionate people, most of them CIA graduates and what have you. And,
You're like,
you know, the world was your oyster there. You know, you had, again, all the possibilities, anything you wanted to do. I mean, I could do anything I wanted, you know.
yeah, but you really highlighted like local, regional, Hudson Valley, you know, because of your ties with the New York and North New York. You know, you pull it back into the city and introduce it to the masses in the world at the River Cafe. The dining room was absolutely impeccable. You got the clock on the wall, you got the seats on the window overlooking the river, and it was absolutely stunning. And then you go into the kitchen over a ramp. And that's where everything changes. It's just this big area. You got the garde manger on the right, the line. You got the pastry on the left. It was a mess.
You think back to that kitchen. That kitchen was not.
It was a mess. You had to go out into a walking outside. You have to go around the block to get something else. You had to do this. You were piecing together, putting up shelves in places that weren't originally there. And if you're going to put up a shelf with Buzzy O'Keefe, when you put a hole in his wall, you better have his permission because he's a freak about that stuff, right? So I don't know how you did it. You figured it out. I remember one time you wanted to change the plateware, because you had already experienced Le Coq Basque and those plates were cool. And so now you're at the River Cafe and you want nicer plates. But you can't go and say, Buzzy, we want to change the plateware. It's quite expensive. So once a month, you'd buy one box. Like you were replacing the plateware that was already there until you built up an inventory. Then one day you just pulled them out because they were already paid for. That's brilliant. So I know that Neil Murphy, he was out of his mind. You know, he's now in Hawaii.
Neil. I actually spoke to Neil the other day. You know, he's been in Maui. He's been in Hawaii for probably
10 years, more, 15.
At least 10, probably 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he works with a good friend of mine. He's really the corporate chef for Peter Merriman, and
right.
You know, Peter has, I don't know, they have 7 or 8 restaurants now. You know, so. But he's doing really well, and you know, of course, Jerry Hayden was, you know, like my right hand guy, sidekick, along with David and Dave Burke, and you know that whole crew of people.
Yeah, I did a podcast with David,
and you know, a lot of people that have gone on to do great things, and you know, and be excellent chefs and things like that. So which for me, I mean, I think, you know, at this point in our lives and our careers, it's kind of like, that's maybe one of the more satisfying things, right? Yeah. Yes, we've had the good fortune to be successful in a lot of ways, but to be part of what has formed, you know, other people being successful, I think that's what, you know, makes
that's the greatest payback. That's an amazing payback. You could go anywhere in the world, Charlie, go into a restaurant. Somebody's probably worked for you before in one of your multitude of restaurants, you know, and you're going to get taken care of. I want to travel again with you. Remember we went to France in '85. You and I, we traveled
I know. Let's go. Let's go.
I still have pictures. Here. This is you in France. Anybody that's watching this, please see that. That is Charlie Palmer. Loving the grapes. You know, we were always like curious, you know, we always wanted to find new things. We always wanted to put the wrong gas in the car. We always wanted to do,
that was you, man. I knew you.
Hey, let's get this straight now that it's being recorded, right? Yeah, it's recorded. Okay. Just double checking. Sometimes you never know with me. I blame it on Vézelay. I blame it on that's right.
The boozy.
The boozy, the sparkling wine.
Boozy.
All right, so I have to tell the story because now people are going, all right, if you guys are going to just call each other if you're going to do that. We want to hear the story. All right, so Charlie and I are in France in '85, and we'd saved up all our money to eat at all the 3-star restaurants we could, which is a mistake because you can't go to a lunch 3-star restaurant degustation and a dinner 3-star degustation because you get larger. It really, we ate so much food and we never passed up the cheese cart. Came by, So one night we decided that we're going to get the perfect bouillabaisse because we're right there. You know, it's in the Cap d'Antibes. No, not that.
Yeah, Cap d'Antibes.
Yeah, that's right. And it was Le Bacon. Le Bacon was the name of the restaurant, well known for their bouillabaisse, where they bring out platters of live fish and crustaceans and present it to you, and then they go back and they cook it and they give it to you in multiple courses. And during this time, Charlie and I are drinking probably a white wine. More than likely we go to Burgundy because we're snobs, but I don't know if we had the budget at that time. I still have the ledger that I kept too when we were there because we had to settle up. But when I'll probably owe you a couple bucks, I'm saying. So we're driving home and we have a rented car and it's a Ford Scorpio, right?
Scorpio. Yeah, is that what it was called? Yeah, it was a new car because remember a few days earlier we went to Bocuse. Bocuse wanted to drive the car. Remember?
Yeah, because it was an automatic. We went into town thinking we're the hottest things. We're going to rent a BMW. We're going to drive around France, and everything's going to be great. There was no BMWs. You and I are standing looking at each other like, what are we going to do? So they said, well, we have this Ford Scorpio for you. So we got it. So I'm driving the Ford Scorpio back to up to what was it overlooking.
Mougins? I think we were in Mougins.
Mougins. We were in Mougins, correct. Moulin and Mougins was right there. Sure. So we're driving up, and then I'm on the highway, and as I'm ready to get off, it just started to light mist, the rain. The ground was just getting a little bit of rain, and we get off an exit ramp that was just newly paved, and it hadn't rained in a long time. So here the car goes, woo, swishes around. But anyway, that was the accident. But another day when we're in Lyon, right? We're coming back from Lyon. And we're driving back, and we pull in a gas station, ready to go back, and we're looking at, oh, look at this, man, this is cheap. We don't speak great, our French is marginal, we're working on it at the time, and so we pull into a gas station, and I pull up to the pump, and it says Gasoil, Gasoil, but it's so much cheaper. I'm like, why don't we just get this? We don't care. It's not our car, right? So we fill it up. All's good. Pull out. Could hardly get out of the gas station. Starts coughing and choking. I put diesel fuel in our poor little Ford Scorpio that wasn't set up for diesel. So by the time it chokes, we pull into another. We limp into another station somewhere along the line, and we tell the guy that we had done this, but we didn't know how to explain it to him. And I'm telling him like, I knew there was a drink. The French would call a panache, where they mixed different things inside of it. It was a mixed drink. So I'm saying to the guy, panache, panache, and I'm pointing into the gas tank, and the guy's cracking up because he finally figures out that these Americans are just out of their freaking mind. And so we call a cab, and we get the cab back to the Mougins, and the lady must have hit 25 rabbits on the road back. And she just kept rolling over rabbits, making a funny noise as she did so. So this is just one, everybody who's listening, one of the stories of Charlie Palmer and Rick Moonen's mad adventures. But my God, what an experience that was. I mean, we ate that. Where else?
We ate a Bocuse. We ate at
Marc Minot.
Chappelle.
Alain Chappelle. Yeah, man, that was, and that had a long-lasting impression on me as well. And then Don Pintabona, I think that worked with you, was also staying at
he was at Georges Blanc, yeah.
Georges Blanc, that's right. I got white in my head. I'm saying white. Yeah. I know it's got something to do with white.
The little town of Vona, Vona. Years later, Vona, for those that don't know, is a small town. But when Georges Blanc and La Mère Blanc, his family or his mother, had the small restaurant there that he turned into a larger restaurant and hotel and what?
Yeah, with a helicopter landing pad.
It took over the town. The whole town was like they should have called it Le Town Blanc, or Chez Blanc, because the whole town was basically owned by Georges Blanc and his family. And but years later, when we moved to Healdsburg, I thought like this is kind of like Vona. I wanted it to be like Vona, but not to that extent. But make it all about what we're doing.
Yeah, walk the cows down the street.
Yeah, hotel and restaurants, and butcher shops, and wineries. Wine.
Healdsburg is gorgeous, man. I mean, and I've seen a big evolution since you've been there. I mean, unbelievable. But
we have a great town here.
And Vona. So he basically became the mayor of Vona, Georges Blanc.
Yeah.
His restaurant and everything, because cuisine is so important there. And and reputedly the best chicken in the world lives in Poulet de Bresse.
The land of Bresse.
That's right. And so we've had many a multiple layer tasting of the chicken of Bresse. I think we had the breast and it was sliced with truffles in between, and then we had the leg another way, and then everything. Yeah. And then we had a consommé made as well. So it was just basically it was poached. but it was incredible. I have a taste memory of that.
Beautiful.
So, okay, so where were we last? You're at Oreo. You opened up Oreo, the greatest restaurant.
Well, when I left, I was just a couple of, really 2 years in Wacabuck at the country club, and
Right.
I knew it was time to, I wanted to go to New York. I wanted to when I went to the River Cafe I was there for almost 4 years, and I'd said to Buzzy a few times at that point, it's like, look, I'm going to have to move on to do either my own thing, or you have to make me a partner in the restaurant, and
Right. Which you'll never do.
which would not happen. So I put a business plan together and really tried to conceive what I really wanted to do, my dream kind of thing, and that was to kind of create what I would say at that time was like the American Lutèce, which meant like, what does that mean? That means, I love the fact that Lutèce is in a townhouse in that part of town, because I thought it was important to me to be in that area. I felt like if I'm going to play with the big guys, the big chefs, then I want to be in that part of the world, that part of the city. And so, I had good fortune to actually had a couple of different options for business partners. One of them was Steven Greenberg. I don't know if you remember Steven Greenberg.
Oh boy, sure, of course.
The clubs and just the dynamite guy. But he wanted to do something downtown. It was actually on Green Street that we looked at a couple of locations. But anyway, so ended up partnering with Steve Zolis and Nicola Cazzoni. Talk about being somewhat insane. Like, if you go into business with someone and their mistress, probably not the most sane idea, but anyways, it worked out really well, and we were able to find a wonderful home and for Oreo, in that townhouse.
Gorgeous.
In a great location. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what else was in the area there? You had that area locked up. I mean, there was Anne. She had her thing going on, Annie's place.
Well, there was a lot of interesting things, right across the street from the Regency Hotel, up the street from the Pierre Hotel, so all that stuff. But,
but when you first opened, before you opened, I think you were like out in front of your restaurant handing out food samples to people walking by.
Well, we did remember, we used to call them sheetrock dinners because, I was involved in the construction and doing the restaurant, and, you learn that, construction people end at 2:00 in the afternoon. So what was someone like us, we're just getting started, right? So we made sure that the kitchen actually got finished way before the rest of the building, really, and the dining room. And, we would just at 3:00, we would just sweep everything up and put down a plywood table on top of sawhorses and cook. And, so when you're cooking, they're like, what are we going to do all this food? We're getting, I'd call everybody I know and get samples of this and that, and call every wine, guy
I was there several times.
Yeah, exactly. It'd say, look, hey, drop me off some samples. I'm going to be buying a lot of wine. So, you better step up here. And we would literally just go out in the street and say, hey, you want to eat some food? Come on in, for the, these sheetrock dinners. And, people thought we were crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, we're opening a new restaurant, it's going to be open soon. We're cooking, we're testing things. And people are like, oh, I want to be part of that. Right. So,
when you open that,
it was a lot of fun.
There was nothing like it. The plaster implants. What do they call those on the walls?
Yeah, the embossed walls. Yeah,
unbelievable. The flowers. I mean, Nicola was in charge of the flowers.
Yeah.
Made sure you paid through the nose, and
we were just cooking and working to pay for the flower bill.
Pretty much, yeah. Thanks very much, but you could
because
because
the flowers.
you got to take care of the mistress. That's for sure. I got it.
Yeah.
And eventually I worked in a restaurant that was back to back with Oreo, because you had an outside dining area, patio outside. The secret sliding door there.
Yeah.
When you open that up.
The pass-through window.
That's right, man. We used to pass stuff out. I'd get a phone call from one of the guys in the kitchen. You guys got any scallops over there? And out the window on a string inside of a quart container, we'd lower down how many you need.
Yeah.
Oh God,
that was good. I stopped by that. I stopped by the location, which we saw eventually,
20 years later, we owned the building, Steve and Nicola and I bought them out at one point, and then the partnership, and then I sold the building to Christian Liegra, the designer, and the building became a studio for his furniture design stuff.
I haven't been in Manhattan in a long time, man.
Beautiful. The building's still beautiful. I mean, it's still
it got a lot of attention. You got a lot of you got Michelin Stars there, Charlie.
Oh, yeah. No,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Great location.
No big deal.
Great location, great fun.
Sure. It's all about the location.
Memories galore.
Man, your integrity in the kitchen was unmatched, man. I remember it. You were fantastic. And you were never really that flustered. You never got upset. Me, I'm the idiot. I'm the guy on the end, like blowing up and being spinning around like a top, right? And you were super cool. You would just entertain yourself watching me like beat up Bruce Eggdahl or something because, you put some Mirepoix in my oven before I was done with service. Oh. So we also had the restaurant together, you and I, at one point. You were still at I believe the River Cafe. I was at the Water Club at the same time, and we opened up the Chefs and Cuisiniers Club.
Yeah. Well, I was at Oreo. Because we took.
You were. Oh, that's right. You were at Oreo.
Yeah. I was at Oreo. Yeah, it's Chef's Club. I mean, we had to open something. We'd hang out and spend all our money in some Old Town bar or whatever else. We said,
right.
we got to have something on our own. We got to have something where we spend our money on our own.
Man, those are great memories, though. The Chefs and Cuisiniers Club. That was a cast of characters, me, and Frankie, first of all. But we were there every night. After we'd get out of work, we'd go to our own restaurant. And then the idea was to have everybody in the industry that now that all the restaurants are closed. By the time you clean up, wash down, do whatever you got to do, order for the next day, you get out. By the time you arrive somewhere, it's at least 11 o'clock. And that's when we started doing business. We went 11 to 3 in the morning. And I mean, it was... We got to meet a lot of people through there, though. I became real good friends with Gray Coons, who'd come in all the time, and Tom Colicchio, and what's his name?
Larry Forgione was always there, hanging out.
Yeah.
Getting in trouble.
That's kind of like what we had the place for, It's just like a melting pot of everybody.
CC Club was the cause of more. The CC Club, I think, was the cause of more. Causes more marriages and get-togethers and probably more divorces than any place.
Possibly.
You could imagine. And fights. How many fights were there? Oh my God.
Well, after a while, everybody in the industry says, they know us really well. They expect you to buy them everything. After a while,
right.
Where do you draw the line? These are the toughest things. Everybody wants you to give them a comp. At least every third drink. Come on, And they're like, oh, smokes. That was a small space, but it was a lot of fun.
Remember those epic parties, though?
Halloween parties were the epic ones.
Every time we made a little bit of money, the three of us, we said, what are we going to do? We're going to throw a party and spend the money.
Yeah, we pulled it around the Animal House mentality. Let's just throw a party. Let's do it. Yeah, we got it.
I always remember the Magnum party. Remember the Magnum party? We said we're going to have a party where everybody, when they walk through the door, gets a Magnum of champagne for themselves.
Right.
Remember, Vouv did that with us. Remember?
That's right.
Vouv Clicquot, they said, okay, we'll sponsor it because everybody wanted to. Every wine company or champagne company, everybody wanted to sponsor stuff because we had the whole audience right there. We had all the chefs and the restaurant people. They were all in one place. It's like, look, what better place to get your product out there,
Huh. And we used to do educational seminars there too, and presentations, and like oyster Chablis. I think we had Moreau. Christian Moreau was at our restaurant talking about Ray Wellington, who was with Rosengarten at the time. David Rosengarten and Ray Wellington, they were teamed up doing a low priced wine store. I think everything was under $20 a bottle or something like that. And they were big voices back then. And we had a packed house. That was good. Man, that was one of our side projects.
It had to end though because at some point you can't hang out till 3 o'clock in the morning.
No, it was killing
us. Anything done the next day. So
yeah. It was a hard schedule to keep up, but it was good practice for like those days where you couldn't take off when you really wanted to go down the line, And we also had a farm, our own little garden going out on Long Island. Yeah. Oh my God, what was it? The Basil Brothers? What did we call that?
The Basil Brothers, yeah.
That's right. We were the Basil Brothers, man. We were unstoppable out on Long Island. That was a lot of fun too. Where Charlie had, let me explain what that is. That Charlie had a friend out on Long Island. Charlie, did you live in Long Island at the time? Did you had a house?
We had a house. Yeah, we had a house.
Right. So you're living out on Long Island, and you became friends with a local chef, and he had some land, and you decided you wanted, hey, why don't we just plant? Again, you're instigating farms all over the place.
Yeah.
You little instigator.
Colin Ambrose. Yeah, Colin had, he still has some stuff out there. Colin Ambrose.
Yeah, Colin Ambrose. That was a good time. They had a big article about it in one of the big magazines. It was fun.
Yeah.
Took pictures of us. We're in our hunting outfits, like we're like. Oh man. So and way back, remember, like when we were at La Côte Basque, we're working crazy hours, we're opening up, or we're closing after lunch. We're finally getting out at 4 o'clock, maybe. If we got out, that was a good time, 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then you had some connection at Le Petit Marmite, where you were doing pastries on the side, secretly learning pastries.
I literally would run to a Petite Marmite, which wasn't far away from,
No, it's near the UN.
And to get over there, because I was doing a pastry for Le Petite Marmite and dinner service, and then whatever I would prep for the next day's lunch too. It's over by the UN, so yeah. And Gerard, the chef, was he was a piece of work because.
You dragged me with you a couple of times. I remember making petiviers, cutting through the puff pastry. That was
different tarts. We used to make a really, really nice chocolate ganache tart. We used to do that, like a lemon tart, of course, apple tart, tart tatin. Yeah.
That's where I learned how to make tarts, with you side by side at Petite Marmite, man.
Yeah,
I still suck at it.
The TVA was our piece de resistance,
Yeah.
Almond petivier.
So you've done a lot of television. You've done so many things. You wrote all these books. I said I was going to bring them back up, but it's hard to. But you got New American Kitchen, right? I'm going to pull them all out here. I got the
world's first waterproof cookbook.
It is. I like that. Is the pages are water? Yes, it is. So I can take this in my jacuzzi.
Yeah, it's made out of it's a recycled kind of resin material. It's not paper.
Splatterproof, sauce-proof, and waterproof. Says it right on the label there. Just got to read that. You got a book on camping, cookout camping, and these are the best days of my life, man. I love live fire and hunting.
Yeah, that book is super popular, and to this day, I mean, it still continues to sell. It was, we sold
this leather
books at like Gander Mountain and Bass Pro Shops and places like that.
That makes sense. I could see this in a Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah, not a lot of books out there with game cookery that are good.
Casual cooking, Charlie and his boys.
Yeah, that's an oldie.
Yeah. None of these are signed. I have to get you to sign sometime. All right, Charlie Palmer's American Fare.
Yeah, that's our most recent book. But really a great home book. Yeah. After years of doing books, like a lot of chefs do, Rick, that they're nice to look at and stuff, but are people really cooking from this book? And I'm like, no. So you
look something up on the internet. Like Charlie Palmer's quail terrine, and something will come up probably.
But that book, American Fare, people really are successful cooking out of at home. Yeah, it's really, it's really home cooking, and stuff that doesn't, not list of mise en place, and
right.
Most of the things are 30-minute meals or not,
Yeah, when I did my cookbook, on fish, I made the recipes look real simple and small, but there's embedded in that you have to turn to page 32 to get the sauce. You have to turn to page 12 to do this. It's like reading a newspaper. Why don't I just put on the entire article and stop me turning pages when it's windy out? So anyway, that's just my complaint for the day. This is one of the first books that you wrote, I think. Was it A Great American Food?
9 printings.
That went through 9 printings.
We went 9 printings, and I think I may, we've revised. That's an older version, or that's an original version.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've done 9 printings of that book. It's amazing. It's still sells, and it's still relevant. I mean, I think that's the important thing about it.
These are people still have to look at John Louis Paladin's book and to understand the history and the evolution. We were just lucky to be crazy, ambitious, fearless, at a time where, there was quite competitive market out there, and we helped to change cuisine. We did. It was, I just feel blessed to be, just in the group. And these pictures, like gaufrette potatoes, sweetbreads. Oh my God. I just cooked sweetbreads recently. This book is just, and you did sign this one. Let me see. It says, to Rick, a great chef, a better cook, but most of all, a great friend. All the best. 1096.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been around. Oh, wait. There's more. But wait, I don't think I have them all. But this is definitely one of the first ones that you came out with.
Yeah, this is really an art book that we did and shot with Gozen Kushida. Gozen was our photographer.
Yeah.
Amazed with it.
I mean, the pictures.
Everything's done on, everything was shot on a light board, and really cool. I thought,
Oh man, and that reminds me of the painting. You had a painting done. Remember, with all the foods floating down and all these chefs. It was the Last Supper, I think it was.
It's here in my house.
Oh yeah, that's right. You showed it to me.
Yeah, the one thing that I've kept from the Chefs Club, Chefs and Cuisiniers Club. It was original oil based on the Last Supper, but with all of both of our mentors, a lot of the mentors
that we looked up to, Ferdinand Poin,
Escoffier, right, and Bocuse, and Alain Ducasse is in that when he was young. I was always enamored with Ducasse, and which is great.
And this is another book, so I just want to make sure I show you all the books that have got the Great American.
Well, yeah, that's a reprint of that's the most recent reprint of Great American Food.
Right. So I have them both now.
Yeah.
There's the one there with. Well, Judith, you did a lot with Judith. You got married on her property, didn't you? No.
Yeah, we had a reception.
You got married in Hawaii, and then you came back and had a celebration.
We eloped. We did an elopement.
Right. Well, you're still with Lisa, and you got a beautiful family. You got
we're very fortunate.
You created quite a world for yourself there, Charlie. So, name of the podcast is Ocean Raised. So I'm going to talk to you about your love or connectivity with the ocean and your feeling on aquaculture.
Yeah.
I personally, but I've gone through. I'll just give you a quick. I've gone through a time in my life where I wouldn't touch aquaculture. That would you and me, if we had a discussion at La Côte Basque, what is that? That's stupid. No way.
Right.
We're hunters. We're gatherers. We want dirt under our fingernails. We want the real deal. But as the world evolved and grew, and all the issues of overfishing, et cetera, in the ocean were happening, we weren't really paying attention. And so I kind of went off on my own a little bit and started talking out about it for many, many years. And subsequently become the brand ambassador for a company that's coming out with some new products that they're doing things very sustainably. And what they're focused on is nutrition and texture and flavor, and the things that maybe you didn't find in the earlier days of aquaculture. So I just like your take on all that.
Yeah, well, obviously, as chefs, we have a responsibility and to lead the way, because we all know this, it's a foregone conclusion. There's not enough fish in the ocean. And if we continue to wipe out, every species that would, known to man, it's not going to last very long. I'd love to see my kids and their kids, enjoying everything that comes out of the ocean.
100%.
But just recently, I've become very involved with Hog Island oyster, for instance.
Oh, got my switch.
We did a series with John and Terry.
On Finger?
Yeah, John. And yeah, just amazing what they're doing, and talk about being responsible and talking about, reintroducing everything back into the waters and doing it in the right way, that kind of thing. And then also, I became involved and enamored really with Big Glory Bay king salmon from New Zealand,
right? Which
they're doing it the right way. Like you say, there's we would have never endeared the whole aquaculture thing, right. But when it's done the right way and it's done responsibly and it's done sustainably, obviously, that I think that's an important thing, and the product is amazing. Well,
I want to introduce you to Kahala. That's it's being formed.
Kahala, yes.
So I'm going to get you a couple of fish. We'll follow up after, after this, and I'll have someone send you a couple of fish in a round. I just want your input on it and any inspirations or whatever. Have somebody put their phone on you while you're opening it, just make a couple of comments or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
We're trying to gather up some momentum because I think it's a great product. It's a challenging world we're in right now, so we all have to make sure that something of that quality, because I got to work with it recently and it was amazing. It really was, and I've touched a lot of fish in my life and I've tasted a lot of fish, and it's certainly really formidable as far as the higher categories of quality and all the things that you want as a chef. When you're putting a product in your hands, you want it to be able, it's got a story behind it, it's got all the things that make a great dish, and that's pretty much all it takes. Then the story goes deep, so I like that. Deep as in deep ocean water. Anyhow, so that's our discussion on seafood, then, folks. And
but it's interesting that I think, and I'm sure you feel the same way, that the longer I'm doing this, and the more time we've spent in the kitchen, and in some way become kind of the fathers of what we do. Mm-hmm. It's just so evident that the thing that makes us special, that makes our food special, or what we can be special with, is the fact that we start with the very best stuff. It sounds simplistic, but if you start with the very best, pristine, flavorful, incredible ingredients, then you can make great food on the plate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you remember as well as I that some of the older chefs would say to me. And even at the time, I thought, this is crazy. They would say, the sign of a great chef is to take something that's not so great and embellish it or season or do something to it to make it better. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why not buy the very best, start with the very best ingredients, and then don't screw it up, just, make it great.
Yeah, as I've been through my career, I've had people that didn't have the same integrity, and they just like, yeah, it's okay. Look, the steak's not supposed to have green stuff on it. Scrape it off.
We put enough pepper on it. It's like pepper steak.
I've seen racks of lamb going to fryer laters because someone forgot to fire it. I've started fires in kitchens on several occasions. We all have our list of things that we're not so proud of. But what I was always crazy, at the Water Club at the time when I was there, it was so busy. We were doing $11 million a year, 10 to 11, and then the market tapered off. We had recession, whatever. But when I was there, we were doing so much business that we had a lot of banquets, and we had a big grill, and my guys, all the guys, sous chefs included, wanted to pre-fire the. Can we mark the salmon now? I look at my watch, and we're not due for another hour and a half, and then they have the reception. So by the time the salmon's going to hit their plate, it's going to be 2.5 hours from now. What's your problem? And I'm like, we're not going to fire that salmon until we see the whites of their eyes. We can cook it in the time we can heat. We can pull the plates out and lay them out. And these guys thought I was crazy, and I was like, no, we're going to peel. We're not buying pre-peeled shrimp that's been cooked and serve it on a. No, we're going to make a court bouillon. We're going to cut, and we would have beer. I'd get some beers out at the end of the night, and it's just post service. We'd sit in the back and we just play music and peel shrimp, because that's what we did, and it's what we continue to do. Not maybe as physically, because I'm 64. You're 3 years younger than me, Charlie, and you look terrific, by the way. And I've taken up a lot of your time. I'm trying to find a way to wind it down, because I can talk to you forever. Because you've always,
Hey, when things start to open up, we got to get together, man. You gonna come out and do pigs and Pinot with us again?
What's that?
Are you gonna do pigs and Pinot again?
If you ask me to do pigs and Pinot, I will do it for the rest of my life, Charlie. It's one of the best times I have, and it's my opportunity to feel the nostalgia that I feel right now with you being there and seeing all your kids that are amazing. Your Voltaggio. Yeah, I work for Charlie Palmer. Yeah, I work for Charlie Palmer. Yeah, I mean, these guys. Come on, the list goes on. And it can just be me and you understanding the names because we know who they are. Some people aren't necessarily as out there, but they're still behind the scenes running restaurants and just not asking for the recognition. Like I said, the web goes global and it's thick. It's almost opaque, the Charlie Palmer web. And I'm so proud of you and what you've done and what you've accomplished. And just one last thing, you can be a great chef, the best. You can take a
a piece of tuna, cut the very center of it out, serve that to someone. It's the best. And throw everything out in the garbage. You got what I call an expensive hobby, but to take it and to build and to attract, all of the team that you have created, with your savant brilliance. Seriously, the people that you have on your team and always have had on your team have gone on in the industry to become very, very influential, very important. Michael Bonadies, right? Remember Bonadies?
Sure, Michael.
He went and worked with Drew Niepront and all these. I mean, these are names that people may or may not know, but I know them. And so I just want everybody that's listening to know that, they can read about you and it's very impressive, but there's so much more to it than the real person, the real Charlie Palmer. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing some stories with me.
I'll just add to that, but I really think that what's happening today, and then we see this in our group of young chefs and not just chefs, but front of the house business people. The next generation is going to be the generation. It really is. See, my son Reed, who just graduated from Cornell, graduated from CIA, whatever. But he's spent time in kitchens and 3-star Michelin kitchens in Paris.
Yeah,
and he's worked at Single Thread. He has this experience, but he also the way of thinking and the way they approach food. I think it's just amazing and ingenious, and they're super smart.
But what I see in your children, because of course as parents you're like, I was fortunate. I went the right ways. I was in the right places at the right time. I didn't ask to be born on a farm. I didn't expect, but you rolled in your natural way to become a huge success as Charlie Palmer. You're a brand, and your sons. You're like, I got to make sure that if they're interested, I'm going to find out if they got a real interest, and I'm going to support them every way I possibly can. He's going to have a better experience than I did, and that's what's going on. But that normally leads to a child that just doesn't really, they kind of push back from you, it seems. But your kids embrace it, and they're fantastic at it. I mean, it's just not fair, Charlie. You know what I mean? It's super admirable and says everything about you. So what am I going to say? Keep it up. We'll get together soon.
Well, it's all good. Let's do that, man.
All right. Thank you so much, Charlie Palmer. My best
Thanks,
friend.
man.
Take care.
foreveroceans.com